Have you ever wondered if God really knows you? I'm here to let you know that He knows you better than anyone else ever could. Hey, it's Rossi, and today we're talking about if God really knows us. The reason it matters if God really knows us is because so much of who we are and what our lives look like are wrapped up in our identity. And our identity comes from Christ. We spend so much of our time thinking about and wondering about what other people think about us, and not nearly enough time thinking about what God says about us. Your identity, how you see yourself, has so much to do with what you're able to accomplish, with what you're able to achieve, with your mindset when you think about your life, when you think about your purpose, when you think about your family, when you think about your finances. So much of how we think about that comes from what we think about ourselves and our identity. So because God knows us, we can be confident that whatever assignment He's given us, we have the ability to accomplish our goals, our dreams, and His plans for us. In Jeremiah 1:5, it says, I knew you before I formed you in your mother's womb. Before you were born, I set you apart and appointed you as my prophet to the nations. And we see here from scripture that even before we were born, God knew us. God had plans for us. God was thinking about us. And in that context, the word know there implies intimacy. It's not just a God knows of you. He has intimate knowledge of us. Growing up, I had a relationship with God. I gave my life to God at a very early age. But one of the things that didn't occur to me until I was much older, and until I was in college, in fact, is that God was concerned and had thoughts about me uniquely, about me as an individual. And for most of my life, I kind of thought of God as this cosmic being in the sky. And I knew I had given my heart to Him, but I didn't know Him well enough to know what He said about me. So when people would say things about God thinking about us, I kind of thought about it as, yeah, I know He thinks about us. But I didn't understand that there was a deeper relationship that God wanted to have because He knows me, because He created me, because He gave me my personality. He gave me my quirks. I like to call them quirks and features, right? I don't call them flaws. They're my quirks and features. So the things that are unique to me, God gave them to me. And when I got older and I realized that, it really helped me tap into so much more that God had for me, because I began to understand that the reason I'm wired the way I am is because it's directly connected to what God has for me to do, and to my dreams, and to the people that I'm called to serve, and to the people that I'm called to minister to. As God was creating us, He knit us together with the gifts and the talents and the treasures that we needed to fulfill what He put us on earth to do. Even our physical attributes are things that God created. And my son used to have a saying when he was in kindergarten. I think one of his teachers gave it to him. He said, you get what you get and you don't pitch a fit, right? And so the things that you want to complain about yourself, realize that God knew all about that when He put you together. When He was knitting you together in the womb, He knew your eye color, your hair texture, your skin tone, the good and the bad. God put all of that together when He made you, and you're made in His image. He literally knows you intimately. He knows you from the inside out. In Isaiah 46:10, it says, only I can tell you the future before it even happens. Everything I plan will come to pass, for I do whatever I wish. So we see here that God says only He can tell the future before it happens. God even knows our end from our beginning. And so when you know that about God, it gives you license. It gives you the ability to rest in Him and to trust Him, because He knows your end from the beginning. And when He's telling you to do stuff, when He's asking you to take a step of faith, or when He's telling you to change course, or when He's telling you to hold your position when you want to move on, You have to trust that because he knows your end from your beginning, that God has a plan, and that plan is good. And even when it doesn't feel like it, God is still in control because, again, he knows our end from the beginning. I think sometimes we go through life like God is surprised about what's happening to us. As if when something happens, everybody in heaven starts to panic. I don't know who needs to hear this, but heaven does not panic when things happen in our lives. Nobody in heaven is surprised. One of the reasons why knowing that God knows us matters is because it gives us a greater capacity. He doesn't give us assignments that we are not equipped to complete. And you can rest and lean back on that to say, God, this thing that you are telling me to do is hard, but I know that you would not give me an assignment that I don't have the ability to complete. All of our strengths, all of our weaknesses, God has understanding of all of that when he gives you the assignment, when he gives you the call. So it is never a moment to think this is too hard. I can't do this. I don't have the ability. If God is calling you to do it, you have the ability. You can do it. He has given you everything. When God calls us to complete something, to do something, everything we need to complete the task is already in us. Now, does that mean that you don't have to grow, that you don't have to gain skill, that you don't have to maybe connect with somebody else? No, that doesn't mean that you don't have to do those things. But it means that the ideas are in you. It means that the ability to make the connection is in you. It means that the ability to do more than what you thought you could do, to go past the capacity you currently have, or to push yourself past where you're comfortable. All of that is already in you. And knowing that God knows you, it allows you to say, well, if you told me to do it, I must be able to. And that's kind of how I was with this whole Thrive with Rossi thing. Listen, I am so behind the scenes. I love to be on the operational side of things. I love to do the administrative or the executive level things. And I had no desire at all to be in front of a camera doing this. And so when God told me that this was the next phase, it took me so long to just say, okay, because I was just thinking, this does not even match my personality. It doesn't even match what I like to do. But what I realized is, it wasn't that I didn't like to do it. I just didn't like to do it in front of a camera. And so I talk to people all the time. I'm constantly, having those conversations with women. I'm constantly having conversations with strangers. I'm very outgoing. I'll talk to anybody. I think it was just the whole idea of being on camera that was, outside of my comfort zone. But at one point, I just had to take that advice for myself and say, God, you know me. If you created me and you're saying this is the thing, then I trust you enough to say that I can do it because you put everything in me to do this. And so you guys are actually seeing my belief in that happen live right now. In the Bible, we see so many instances where people are asked to do things that they thought was not in their capacity to do. Think about Moses when he was called to free the Israelites. Think about Gideon when he was called to go to war. Think about David when he was just a boy and being asked to defeat a giant, right? All of them had the capacity. They had the ability. They just didn't know it in the moment. But when the moment came, the thing that was already on the inside of them stood up and they were able to accomplish great things. And that is what can happen when you trust that because God knows you, he gives you assignments that he know you can complete. Hi, guys. Unfortunately, we lost part of the recording due to a power outage during the hurricane. So I will catch you on the next one. And remember, you were meant to thrive.